So this is a video to review the angle of pull and the line of pull, hopefully to help answer some questions. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the line of pull. So the first thing that we need to do there is locate the origin of the muscle as well as the insertion. Remember the origin is more proximal or medial, and the insertion is more distal or lateral. So the line of pull is going to go in a straight line from the insertion to the origin. Okay, again, it's always a straight line, and it goes from the insertion to the origin. The angle of pull is a line that is formed, an angle that is formed between the line of pull and the bone that the muscle inserts on. So for this example here, we had already found our line of pull. So now we need to look at the bone that it inserts on, which is the radius, and the angle is located between the line of pull and the bone that it inserts on. It's also always on the side of the muscle that's closest to the joint. So our angle is going to be this little area within the muscle and the bone that it inserts on. Now, as we go through a range of motion, the angle of pull will change. So if we draw an example here, we have the humerus, and then we have our radius. So this is our elbow joint. Okay. Our brachioradialis starts just above the elbow joint on the humerus and runs down to the distal end of the radius. So again, if we drew our line of pull, it's going from insertion to origin. So it would run this way, and then our angle again would be located between the muscle and the bone that it inserts on, so it would be that small angle there. So we have a small difference between the angles of the extended position and the flexed position. So in this example, we cannot see the origin of the muscle. What we can do, however, is find our insertion, and then we can see which direction the fibers run, and we can make an estimate based on that. So we're going to follow the fibers straight up towards the muscle belly. So we're going to have a little bit of an angle here on our line of pull. The angle of pull, again, is between the line of pull and the bone it inserts on closest to the joint. So we know that the semimembranosus attaches kind of towards the lateral side of the pelvis in comparison to its medial attachment here. So our angle of pull is going to be on that lateral side, the lateral side of the insertion between it and the tibia. Okay? As our knee flexed, so if we draw this from a side view, so if we have our femur, here's our knee joint, and then we have our tibia. Our semimembranosus kind of originates from the posterior side of the femur, and then it comes straight down this way. So here we would have a fairly decent angle. When we look at it in this way, our line of pull would be straight upwards, and then our angle would be here. This would be an angle fairly close to 90 degrees when we're at the 90-degree point. Now, we talked about the difference in dislocation and stabilization. When we have an angle of pull that is less than 90 degrees, that will cause dislocation of the bone, meaning that it will cause movement. When we have an angle that is greater than or equal to 90 degrees, we would have stabilization, meaning that it contributes to movement, but it's not the primary muscle that's causing the motion. In this example, we'll look at the infraspinatus. So the infraspinatus, which is this muscle here, runs from the medial border of the scapula to the posterior side of the humerus. So when we see muscles that have this long insertion like this, or if they have a long origin, we have to do similar like we did to the semimembranosus and follow the direction of the fibers. So regardless of which point we pick along the insertion of the infraspinatus, we're still going to go to that same origin point. So if we start up here, our angle is going to be a lot straighter. If we're down at the bottom, our angle is going to be more like this. So it's going to depend where we're at in the muscle. Okay, So if we consider the bottom line to start with, here's our line of pull, again going from our point on the insertion to the origin, and then our angle of pull is going to be on the superior side because that's the side that's closer to the joint. So our angle here would be less than 90 degrees, which would mean that it's causing dislocation, or it is causing the inferior border of the scapula to move outwards. Okay, if we look at our top line on our infraspinatus, this angle would be equal to, maybe a little bit greater than 90 degrees, which means that it is stabilizing. So it still has a contraction that is pulling in an outward direction on the scapula, but it's not causing motion. So this line is not causing motion. This line is, again, and that would cause that outward motion of the inferior border of the scapula, or upward rotation. So if you ever get a picture and you're not sure exactly how to draw the angle of pull, the easiest thing to do is draw a sketch for yourself. So for example, if we look at the gastrocnemius, so it runs from the posterior side of the femur down to the Achilles. So if we start with our femur, at the top we have our knee joint. We're going to run down, so this would be our tibia, and then we have our foot, and this would be our heel. Okay, so we're going to erase our knee here, move that to the front. So again, our gastroc runs from the posterior side of the femur, right behind the knee, down to the calcaneus. Attaches there. So at this current position, our line of pull would be straight up, and our angle of pull would be here. Okay, so that's right about a 90-degree angle of pull. So as we move, that angle is going to change. So here again, we see our femur, tibia, and foot. This time we are going to change the angle on our foot. So we're going to pretend that this person is in a planar flexed position. So we still have that same origin coming down to the insertion on the calcaneus. Our line of pull has stayed close to the same direction, still going upwards, but our angle of pull has increased. So we've gone from about a 90-degree angle of pull to about a 130-degree angle of pull. So that is greater than 90 degrees, which means it is a stabilizing force. Okay, so now if we go the opposite direction, so we have our femur, our knee, our knee, our tibia, and then our foot in a dorsiflexed position. Again, we have our origin coming down to our insertion. The line of pull is going to stay close to the same direction, but our angle has decreased. So here we have an angle that is less than 90 degrees, which means that in this position that's going to be a dislocating force, or it's going to cause motion of the foot. So in this position at the bottom, if we only contracted the gastrocnemius, that would cause plantar flexion. I hope this video was helpful. The key things that you need to remember is that the line of pull always goes from insertion to origin, and it has to be a straight line. The angle of pull is between the insertion and the bone that it inserts on, and it's always closest to the joint. An angle of pull that is greater than 90 degrees is a stabilizing force, and an angle that is less than 90 degrees is dislocating, meaning it's causing movement.